Dave Rennie, I'd say, is a momentum builder. He will build momentum with the pitches the defences give you. So that might be a kick, but it might be a run. So starting there is you look at the kicking game, and if we move up the field, we'll try and move up the field. And in the 22, we're trying to exit. It's long and out for Jamie Joseph. They have averaged 33 kicks, just under 1,000 metres. Whereas Dave Rennie, he's averaged 20 kicks and 568, 569 metres. Now, what that is, I then went to look at the exit strategy. So it's almost 80-20, 80% kick for the Highlanders, 20% run or failed exit. Whereas Dave Rennie, it's 60-40 and very, very, it was like 1 or 2% failed exits. So although it would look at, you'd think, oh, that's risky, Dave Rennie has very limited offloads, very low turnover count. For someone that plays out of the backfield like that, it just shows how he trains the players, in my opinion, and I haven't watched all these games, a lot of this is based off stats, but he trains the players to literally look up and read the picture. And that's why there's a low turnover count. That's why there's a high run count, because, drop back in the backfield, well, there's space there. And he's saying, take it. I want you to take it. Don't ignore it. Don't just kick for the sake of kicking. And I suppose that was the first big difference for me. Neither's better, because Dave Rennie still gets out of his half. Jamie Joseph gets out of his half. But I think they would select different players. As probably the first. Do you know what I mean? Like there is no marry up there. What I think Dave Rennie is all about the breakdown, both sides of the ball. So when the penalty count is high, which both of them have pretty low averages, but I'd say Dave Rennie's is a little bit like that. Dave Rennie coached teams. Obviously, he's not giving the penalties away. When I say they're all about the breakdown, they get a high turnover count at the breakdown and a high penalty count. Because when they get it wrong, they're pinged off the park. And it looks like, based on the stats, that you're told, just keep going. Rather than leave it and, try and work with the ref. And then, obviously, when they get it right, their turnover counts through the roof. So, defensively, all about the breakdown. Attacking-wise, all about the breakdown. Low offloads, low turnover count. I'm going through you. It's Dave Rennie. Yeah. You think about the Chiefs. And I know, because I had Tom Coventry coach me at Harbour, and I was always, in awe of that 2 years of the Chiefs, like just the way they played. And he said they had this thing called napalm, and that's how they clean rucks. You carry, I'm going to get rid of everyone out, And it was brutal. Yeah. It was that brutality. And it's no different for wherever he's gone. Australia, same thing. So I think it's not that Jamie Joseph isn't, because some of his stats lead to the breakdown, but Dave Rennie statistically you're not going away from it. Even if you're getting penalised, he's saying rip straight back in there. Yeah. Which leads to the next point is his average gain line is nearly 70%. This is over 15 games. That is ridiculous. And then his dominant carry is just under 40% over 15 games. That's South Africa stuff. So like, and the low turnover count to me just says it's ball carrier cleaner. And we're going to tighten the defence, and then we're going. And we're going to take that space, whether it's via kick or run. Dave is all about the breakdown, but then taking space. Would it suit international rugby? Yeah, probably. But when you look at the 22, so when Dave Rennie sides get into the 22, 65% average convert. This is tries, not penalties. That's pretty impressive. Like, if we look at the Chiefs on the weekend, they were 33%. Crusaders, 67. This is an average of 15 games. It's Japanese top league versus Super Rugby, but it's the best I could do.
And the thing is, over a number of years, these guys have been out of international rugby, so we've kind of got to look at the current trends and the current play, because the game evolves so much. We can only look at the last 2 years.
Well, that's exactly how I started, because I started looking at the Aussie ones, and I was like, well, actually, the game's moved on.
it sounds to me, and this is my take on what you've just said, Dave Rennie's approach is more of a Kiwi style. It buys into the DNA of New Zealand rugby, that the heads up, something's on here, make the play alongside the brutality of the clean and the forward impact, the napalm, alongside the destruction of the rock and roll.
Breakdown.
But that to me says New Zealand coach.
I agree, but I will say, if you look at successful international coaches, it's more Jamie Joseph style.
Yeah.
So it is, like there is arguments.
The current successful international coaches.
Yeah, they don't play a lot of rugby in their half.
Yeah.
South Africa do at times, but not much.
Yeah.
They will bully you down to your part and force you to have to play.
Yeah.
So it's risky to play in your half at international. Like the margins, as we've learned, are so fine. Like look at the Six Nations. If you're off by a little bit, you're going to lose a game. But the one thing is his exits are accurate. Even going to Australia, they are accurate, but they're different.
Yeah.
they like 40% of the time running, man. They're like that, and failed exits are like 1%.
Yeah.
That is so low. Like 1% failed exit, and you're using the ball. Like it's pretty impressive. But again, they're empowered to do it, obviously as players, but it is limited, and like they're not flicking offloads.
Yeah.
They're going, okay, the space is there. How do we get it there? Like his game is bold. Do you know what I mean? Like he ran a lot of players that probably the Wallabies weren't ready for international rugby, and they got pipped. And we'll hear from Justin Harrison shortly to talk exactly like that. Like he does it his way. So you've got to know that it's. But I think like Russie's bold. Is this? He is going to do things differently, and it might just be. I still think I talked to a lot of Wallaby players that were under him, and they feel they would be in a better place had he stayed. And I know it's easy in hindsight with the Eddie Jones thing, but they were turning the corner. I felt they were with Rennie, and it was a mistake, I think, and obviously good for us because I think they would have been in a better place, and the Bledisloe may not be as easy to win. I won't say that in front of Goog. Justin.
So we're going to jump over the Tassie now and see what it was like with Dave Rennie when he was there at the Wallabies. Obviously, it came to a very abrupt end, which might have been probably more political than anything else, and suddenly Eddie Jones was in and Dave Rennie was gone. But Rennie only had a 38% win record, so it wasn't exactly roses there either. So I'm joined now by Justin Harrison out of Australia, and knowing what you know from how Dave Rennie was with the Wallabies, do you think that's a very good option for New Zealand?
Well, let's look at what he did bring to the Australian environment in a time of absolute need and uncertainty, which is if we're going to draw parallels, let's imagine that's right. And my observation is that the All Blacks in New Zealand rugby, there was a bit of instability. Something that Dave Rennie brings is calmness, connection, and knowledge of where he wants things to move through in a stepped fashion. He will not try to boil the ocean in one day. He will spend time to inform himself. And we know that this is also a bit of a cheat code for Dave Rennie because he's a known entity. So he's accelerated in his pathway to what he did in Australia in terms of understanding and observing and connecting with each player. One thing, that is a general observation again about New Zealand. The New Zealand style is connection and empathy and an earthy, an almost earthy type of approach to the human side of the athlete. Dave Rennie has that in huge amounts. The results absolutely are a cold, hard document, but that is just a cold document. You interpret the work that Dave Rennie did, the connection he did, and spent time with Super Rugby coaches, built a lot of those relationships, which now Australian rugby has been able to take forward. Broke down some of that parochialism between state to state and province to province, and absolutely we want tribalism, we want competitiveness, but we also want collaboration for the greater good of Australian rugby. And they're big sweeping motherhood statements, and you need someone at the pointy end of that to build that relationship and build trust. Dave Rennie, I would think on the back of his ability to build trust and establish trust very quickly, is a very strong candidate on that. we can talk about his X's and O's and his result pattern and what he's doing on the field and tactically, and from time to time, that's probably in large part due to him. But I still believe that coaches get way too much credit for victories and way too much blame for losses. What they do though is stabilise platforms and stabilise identity and strategy and make sure that that's from top to bottom, right through to super, right through to even community. Dave Rennie's very strong in that.
You mentioned collaboration, Gog, and I think you're bang on. Like, if I look at the players from the Chiefs, they will die for Dave Rennie, like what he did there, like their belief. And reading all the articles in his time in Australia, do you almost feel like had he remained, he was on the precipice of almost turning the corner? Because, man, they have his back still, the Aussie players. They still talk about him going too early.
Yeah, look, it's a good point, mate, but one thing I will say is it's dangerous to rewrite history to reinvent outcomes. We don't know.
Geez, you're a philosopher, Gog.
Well, I've had a bit of time to think about things, and it is dangerous to head down a path of what ifs and scenarios. But absolutely, the ingredients were there. You would expect that we're moving and tracking and positioning themselves to have a better outcome than what was happening at the coalface for Dave. Now, he's a coach that doesn't have a huge risk appetite, right? But he did take on a lot of risk with Australian rugby for a start. Then he took on a huge amount of risk on that end-of-year tour, that ultimately we expect was the final nail in the coffin, the loss to Italy, right? Rolled a lot of players out of the squad on the back of, which is what the current regime has benefited from and people have understood. All of the changes that have happened of late have been on the back of building depth. That's exactly what Dave Rennie was doing. And all of those players, let's not forget those players that took the field against Italy are some of the backbone of the current Wallaby establishment now. Ben Donaldson, missed the kick to lose the game against Italy and has now, come through as one of the contenders to put pressure on 10. There are lots of players like that. It's not fair to single out individuals. So again, if you look at the platform that Dave Rennie was starting to establish, he has disciples for life because he reaches into someone and connects with them and gives them one or two things to achieve on the field. That's what the All Blacks absolutely need to do. They're not going through an identity crisis. They're absolutely certain of who they are and how they are, but they need someone to be able to corral that into a cogent message. Dave Rennie in a calm fashion as well. Without having the longest answer here, head coaches are very keen on having absolute control. One of the first things that any head coach will start to do, and anyone that's coming into senior management, they'll examine how much control they have over the environment. Now, that's because of two things normally, and they're contrasting and conflicted. One is because they're good at what they do and they know what they're doing and they have a plan. The second one is possibly the more sinister one, their fear of being exposed and or just being able to deal with people that they know that aren't going to challenge them, that aren't going to make hard decisions and have confrontations. Confrontation is good. Conflict is good. Now, Dave Rennie is not afraid of conflict. He has a clear path and he has a side screen on where he wants New Zealand rugby and rugby globally to move through.